Bonjour, willkommen and howdy, and welcome to part 2 in this, what might actually turn into be a 3-parter. In the first video you saw, we'd travelled over to France, we'd secured a number of pieces of armour and we've brought them back to the UK. Slight trouble while we were entering into Portsmouth, but all that's sorted now and we're back here in our unit. Behind me is one of these Panhards that we brought back. It's an AML60, but it had a 60 turret placed on it, and we've taken that turret off now so we can get inside of the vehicle and start inspecting the gearbox, some of the electrics and most of the mechanics as well. So what I'm going to do now is give you a quick guided tour of the vehicle as it looks at the moment. I'll show you what I've done, and we're working towards the back where we're hoping to get the engine running. So the engine, to recap, is a 4-cylinder air-cooled Panhard engine. Some people would describe it as a boxer. It's very similar to a Porsche 911 engine from the 1960s. It's petrol driven, it's air cooled, they sound fantastic when they work. We don't know if this one will. I've just changed the oil in it, hence I'm covered now in oil residue, but we've changed the oil in it. It came out really nice, there was no water and there was no swarf, so we think we have a good engine here. So as I said, what we'll do is give you a quick guided tour of it, show you what work we've done so far, and then we'll look at trying to get this started. It could be the first time this has ran for 10 to maybe 20, even longer years than that. We really don't know. Judging by the amount of cobwebs on it, it's certainly around the 10 to 20 years. So let's go and have a look now. So here's the Panhard AML60, missing its turret, which we've taken off at the moment whilst we're doing the work. We have found markings on the front. These are UN numbers, so obviously this is white paint over the original green. I can just about see a French tricolour there underneath the paint, so when this comes off we'll be able to find out what the actual registration is. Interesting to note is the amount of red earth that we found, or sediment, on most of the running gear. This would indicate perhaps that it actually served in Africa. To verify that fact, we have actually found some money inside that says it's from the Central African Republic. So we've put on a replacement front hatch, as this was actually missing, so that's worked quite well. Moving around the vehicle, yes, it does look a bit sad and worse for wear, but actually it's quite sound underneath the paint. I think it's just the flaking paint that seems to give it a bad first impression. The wheels and tyres look very good, so it's really good news as well. The bins on the side, these are usually dented. This one again is from here. This is probably where it was picked up with a forklift and moved around when it was in its storage depot. Looking down, you may notice we're missing here is the fuel filler neck, and that is because there is no fuel tank inside. It was missing when we got it, so the floor was rudimentarily placed back in, but the fuel tank's missing, so we'll have to sort that out. Not a problem really, we've just got a big square we need to fill, and to make sure we have the pipe goes up and exits at the side of the vehicle. Looking down, you can see we've put 2 fresh batteries in here. They're actually connected in series, so that gives us the 24 volts. Over here we've put in a electrical box, so this is how all the electrics are connected, and it's also got our fuses. The dashboard was intact. Looking at it, it seems to indicate 11,732 kilometres. I would suggest that was probably from new, so 11,000, that's not great. I mean, what is that, 10,000 miles. Over here as well, we've had to put this in, so this is the control part of the dash. This is what actually turns the vehicle electrics on, and here's the starter, but we're not going to do that in the moment because we've got no oil in the engine because I've just been draining it out. Brakes are down here, we've got accelerator on the right, we've got the brake on the left, there is no clutch on these. In here underneath this cover you can see are the reservoirs which feed the braking system. Looking in here, it actually does have fluid in, so I'm quite hopeful we might get away with this. It's very dark, so we will take that fluid out and we'll put fresh in and feed it through the system. The rest of it, yes, I mean, to the untrained eye perhaps this looks in very sorry state, but it's actually not. There you go, that woke you up. This here is not really rusty at all, it's just the paint has flaked off. Gear stick here. The knob is on a spring because this is actually the clutch when the electrics are flowing, and this gear stick moves forwards and backwards quite easily, partially because we've done quite a bit of work around here at the back. Now that gear stick, or that gear column, that shift change, you can see here moving back and forth. So we've taken off this runner, we've cleaned it up, and we've oiled all of the linkages going into the gearbox. Gearbox here is running across the vehicle, and you've got a drive shaft coming out to what could be described as a final drive or bevel box. You've got exactly the same happening on the other side, and out of each one of these bevel boxes you have a drive shaft that runs down the side of the vehicle all the way to the front, taking you along the journey now, all the way along, and of course goes into the front bevel box just down here, which drives the front, because these are permanent 4-wheel drive. Steering wheel and mechanism is very good, very responsive, so we're very happy with that. And now we go down, and you can see here I've been draining out the oil at the bottom of the engine. So let's have a little quick look at this, see what the quality's like. Pull it forward. Well, goodness me, there's no water when it came out. It's dirty, obviously, but I can't see any nasties in there, and the actual sump plug is magnetic, and there were no swarf on the end of it, so that wasn't a problem either. So going up to the engine, we'll put that oil away, so I'll know that I will stand in it, and up with a wet foot. This is the power takeoff, which incidentally is excellent underneath. I've had a good look at that. Here we go, we can see the Panhard name in this fantastic font here, very sort of Art Deco Panhard writing. And let's look inside the engine. Let's go through what I've done in here. Now you will notice at the moment the distributor is missing, so we've taken that out. The reason is, and I'll show you the distributor now, it's actually in shocking condition. We can see that it's been left open, there's actually parts missing, and there's a lot of corrosion. So this wasn't, I think it was probably left without the lid on and the water's got into it, so that's no good anymore. Down here, what I have done is I've put in fresh fuel line. It's coming out here. It's going into the fuel pump, which is great. The fuel pump works. That takes it up into the carb, so there's a Zenith carb in there. We haven't cleaned it out. It was covered over, so we may get away with just starting it on this. Again, we've got this red dust over everything, so I think it definitely spent the time driving through the dusty roads in Africa. We've replaced the spark plugs, so here we've gone back to civilian automotive spark plugs. So watch one of my earlier videos on how to do this on one of these vehicles, or indeed the Hotchkiss Jeep. And we've got 4 in there at the moment, so we're just going to put the new Dizzy in, put those cables on, attach them to the new spark plugs, and hopefully we might fire it up. If I follow the fuel line up it goes all the way up. And you can see here, hiding underneath this cloth, we've got about £10 worth of fuel in here with a nice tap on it, so it's turned off at the moment. And this is how we're going to feed the engine, because one, we don't have a fuel tank at the moment, and it's much better to put fresh fuel in than it is to try and fill up any sort of tanks with all the residue that might be in there. You can possibly see here, here's the replacement Dizzy that I'm going to be putting in the moment. So, overall, it sits nicely. It rolls nicely. We may have a chance of rescuing the brakes. The engine turns over. I've done that by hand. That's not a problem. So what we're going to do now is put fresh oil in it, a new Dizzy, put the cables back on, and fire her up. So here we are. We're about to top up the Panhard with fresh oil. We have our 1540 mineral engine oil. You could use, it is argued, a semi-synthetic. I'm not going to. This has probably been run on mineral all of its life, so we're going to stay that way. As long as we keep changing the oil every 6 months, or in worst case every year, I think we'll be absolutely fine. So we're going to decant the oil into a pot, and then we will pour it straight through the funnel into the engine. So to the right hand side of the engine, there is this cap. This cap is opened, and this is where the engine oil goes. You will see there's actually a strainer in here, so I'm going to take that out. There we go. And in here is where we'll put the oil. I'm doing most of the filming myself today, as Ollie is on holiday in Ibiza, so my cameraman. So therefore, excuse the poor camera work, as my expert is enjoying himself somewhere in a bar, undoubtedly. One of these Panhard engines takes roughly 5 litres, well 4.5, so it's 1 gallon of oil. So we're going to put it in a litre at a time. So that was not a great thing to do, was to drop a piece of dirt in there. I did clean all this out a second ago. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put in the engine oil. So we're putting in, there we go, it's 1 litre. Okay, so here we are. I'm sure you can probably see this. Now I'm going to pour the oil. 1 litre. I don't think I actually need the funnel. There we go, so that's 1, so we've got to do this 5 times. So for you it's going to be like watching paint dry. So I'll do 1, and I'll cut away now until I get to number 5. Okay, so by the camera, the magic of the camera, we've now managed to put in 4 litres, sorry, and this is the 5th, so I'm going to put in about half of it, and I'll take you in with the camera and we can have a look at the dipstick. So I'm just demounting the camera a second, bear with me, off we go, and the dipstick is right here, next to where the distributor is, which is not fitted at the moment. So we're going to undo this, we're going to pull this out and clean it, and then we'll dip it back in. So I'm pulling that out. Oh, it's quite a long one. There we go. Are we out yet? No. Okay, it's looking like we're just over the bottom line, sort of halfway full. So we'll clean that off, put them back in, and we'll see what we've got. Okay, so we have 4.5 litres in the engine. So we take the dipstick out. I'm going to clean it off first. There we go. Now we're looking, we've obviously got 2 marks, the empty and the full, and we want it somewhere in between. So we'll put that back in the hole, drop it down, spin it in, because it's actually a spinning, tightening one, pull it back out again. Whoops-a-daisy, what have we got? Look at that. Fantastic. 4.5 litres, takes us midpoint. So I think we're pretty good with that. Interestingly, there's no oil filters on this engine, so we have to change this oil on a regular basis, as there is just no facility to keep the oil clean. Okay, so here we have the new, well, second-hand distributor. So very similar to on the Hotchkiss Jeep, but in these you have a much shorter drive here. On the Hotchkiss is about a foot in length. This one's coming off the top of the engine, so everything's already in there. This is a tested one, works very well. Whoops, 1 second. Those of you that are quite vigilant would have noticed I was just about to fit this replacement distributor, and this part here is where the power goes into the dizzy. It's actually damaged, you can see it here. So that will really affect it, so we need to take this off. So it's probably quite a good opportunity to show you the inside workings of one of these. You've got a coil. The coil feeds into points, obviously, which are going back and forth. You can see them here. Nothing abnormal about that. Got a condenser, pretty standard, it's 24-volt one. Got a the arm, the rotor arm. Sorry about that. You've got the rotor arm here. Nothing abnormal about this. But the interesting thing is the coil is actually inside of the dizzy. So therefore, we need to take this out to be able to get to this unit here to change it across. Okay, so I've undone the retaining screws here, and this particular unit's ready to come out. The other end of it, the back of it, is actually attached over here to one of the posts in the coil. So we're just going to undo this one here. The other end, this other wire goes off towards the points. So this is the one going to that, what one could describe as a capacitor underneath. Now these do play up quite regularly, and they manifest themselves as the engine not starting or running very well. So these do get changed, or should get changed on a regular basis. You've got to remember these electrics now are, well, goodness, 40 odd years old. This hopefully should come out with some level of ease. It's coming out. Now it's a great shame that this one's damaged, because these are quite few and far between. And these are things that give all the problems on the Hotchkiss Jeep. So whereby it's not running, or it's running unevenly, or it's not starting properly. It's a breakdown of these. You will see that they're soldered closed. Sometimes you can find that these have actually opened, and due to excessive heat actually inside of the distributor, the contents of this turn into a fluid and leak out the back. Also, I have found it's very weak here where it's joined. Sometimes this is fractured, and therefore that wire is not touching, so again it won't start properly. So the best thing to do, really unfortunately this, because it is sort of beyond repair, is get rid of it. Okay, so I thought I'd just test the coil while we're here. So I'm putting on the resistance to 20,000. I'm just going to test across between the centre of the coil and the posts, and I'll be hoping to see about 6.3, maybe 6.4. So there we go, in the middle, on one of the posts. Doesn't really matter at this stage. So I got 6.64. It's a little bit high. I mean, if it was up around 9, I'd just junk it and throw it away. So let me have another look. 6.64 as well. Okay, well that's absolutely fine. Let's have a look at the one that was in the vehicle that we just taken out. So here, goodness me, we've got so many distributors, we don't know what's going on. So I'm just going to test this between there, and we have got nothing. There's absolutely diddly squat. I'm really making sure we've got a good earth. There is nothing going on. So that coil is absolutely shot completely. It's not giving me any reading. So that's probably the reason why this vehicle was probably written off, not written off, but put into storage and not used anymore because that coil is completely gone. So that's absolutely fine. We'll just bin that one because that's no good. This is looking the best, so I think I'm going to put this one in.